we see others and the way we understand Jesus in our life.
Wonderful. So, is that something that you could relate with?
Yes. When I got the topic, I was surprised because it's quite similar to what I shared during our week of prayer last month. So,
Wonderful. Do you mind sharing with us how you could relate with this topic, especially with reflecting back on the personal wounds that you had um, as a child, maybe? Yeah, but I'm going to let you tell your story.
okay. So, I shared this before that when I was younger, I met some people who did and they said some things that really hurt me. And in elementary school, I think, I think that was the worst time of my life when I experienced being bullied by my peers. And as what I've shared before, how that has helped me as a person is through that experience, I developed these anxieties, overthinking, and just all these negative thoughts in my head that when I meet new people or if I'm in a new place, I just start it's similar to panicking because I would overthink, what do I look like to these people? What are they thinking of me or about me right now? So, in a way, as I grew older, I started to channel that to becoming the person who would help someone like me to feel at ease and that they won't feel unseen, they won't feel discriminated against, and they'll feel better because they know that someone is there to help them overcome that fear.
Great, thank you. So, is that what you experienced when you were bullied, being unseen and discriminated?
Yeah, I definitely felt unseen and unheard because oftentimes when I will tell someone about that experience, they don't really say what I want to hear, or it doesn't bring me comfort. So I've learned to be that kind of person who could bring comfort to someone even just by listening to
Okay.
their problems.
So, let me see if I understand. So, you were young, those are elementary years, and this happened in school? Okay. And you were bullied. Did someone show up to provide support and comfort when you were being bullied?
I can say my parents, they were very supportive and understanding. But during your elementary years, that's when you listen more to what your friends tell you than what your parents tell you. So at that time, I didn't fully understand the support that my parents were giving me because I was seeking validation from my peers instead of from my parents.
Okay. And that makes sense. People your age back then, it's easier to go to your peers, and sometimes relationship with parents is not as strong as you would compared to your relationship with your peers. What did you get from your peers in return?
When I sought validation from
Yeah.
them, oh, um, I guess a sense of how I'm not alone because I have some friends who went through similar things, and we would just comfort each other by saying things like, "It's okay, it will get better. It will get better in time."
Great. I'm happy that you have a circle of friends that supported you. At the same time, you were saying you were overthinking things as a result of the bullying experience you had. Is that also anxiety?
I think so. I think
You'd
it
say
is anxiety.
yes? Okay. Tell us about your anxiety and how this coping mechanism that you have developed.
Um, my anxiety back then came to a point where it was hard for me to go outside and meet new people. Even ordering food at a restaurant, I would ask my siblings to do it for me because I know that they would help me. That's and when I when my anxiety gets really bad, my hands just start shaking. I sweat a lot, and my heart just races really bad. But um, because of the people that I surrounded myself with, especially after coming to AUP, I found that that anxiety is slowly going away. It's not as bad as it was when I was still in high school, middle school, and elementary.
Great, thank you. Now, do you remember, if maybe you haven't processed this, but do you remember the kind of message you got as a result of the bullying experience that led you to feel anxiety and overthinking of things? Is there a message that keep nagging? You know, for example, you can't trust others, that's why you don't, something might happen to you. What was the message you got as a result of the bullying?
The message I got is, you're not good enough. Like, no matter what I did to fit in, to be seen, it felt like it wasn't enough. That's the message that I always had in my mind.
Okay. So you have relationship with self and you have relationship with others. The message that says you're not good enough, is that a message that you also believe? So it has affected your relationship with self as well. So they somehow gave you that message, you're not worthy to be seen, you're not worthy to care for, you're nothing. And then you embrace that belief, and when you go out there to the world, it's not just you don't trust others, you don't also trust the goodness in you, because it has been diminished. Thank you for sharing. Wow. And yet here you are sharing this very sacred piece of your story. How are you feeling right now?
I'm actually very nervous right now because this is quite impromptu, and I'm not very good at just saying things that come to my mind. So
I understand that. Again, you might go through the same kind of message that you had, which is, am I really good enough to say things? Am I going to be seen? Am I going to be heard? Am I making sense? Now you start overthinking, right? Or the anxiety kicks in. But this is a very wonderful example of what we've been discussing on a nightly basis, the wounding of our innocent freedom. Just want to let you know, you were not born this way. When you were born, and maybe your mom can attest to this, how loud you cry, how strong you demanded for their love, the confidence of the expression when you need something, the confidence and the belief that there is goodness in you, there is value in you, there is worth in you. That's why when you demand for milk, when you demand for a change of diaper, when you demand for comfort and warmth, that baby is 100% sure that someone else is there for them because they do matter, because they are significant, because they are worthy. Now, I'm not quite sure what happened when you started experiencing the external world, and you are highlighting a specific experience when you were during elementary years. And I'm not quite sure, if there are other things, maybe in your unconscious mind, or maybe as a child, some things we don't remember. But this is something poignant for you. Growing up, experiencing bullying from others, and yet here you are, I think as a result, what I was hearing from you as a result of this wounding experience, you don't want others to experience the same exact thing that you experienced growing up. Tell us about this passion that you do have.
So A motto that I keep to myself that's from the Bible is the golden rule: do to others what you want others to do to you. So from then on, whenever I meet people, I try my best to be nice, of course, make them feel comfortable, because in the past I would have loved it if someone did the same to me. And how do I say this? Right now I'm studying to be a teacher. So, and we're taught that as teachers, we're not just going to be teaching in class. We will have to understand our students why they are the way that they are. And I think that those experiences of mine truly helped me, because I was able to experience the world in that way. And I think I would be able to understand my students, some of my students in the future, when they experience the same things.
Okay, and you're studying, remind us what you're studying right now.
I'm taking early childhood education.
Early childhood education. So you're on a mission. You want to make sure other kids don't experience what you have experienced. That's a great mission. You're on a mission to save the world, okay? And maybe I'm exaggerating it a little bit, but here's what happened from my own understanding. There was no stability during the time when you were being bullied. There was no one, someone that you can depend on to protect you. And maybe yourself was not whole enough as such a child to be there for you as well. So that ghost, if you may allow me to call it a ghost experience, continues to remind you that this experience could still happen, not to you, but maybe to someone else. And you want to make sure that those people who are going through this would find someone who could defend them, who could be someone who's a symbol of stability, and maybe someone who could protect them from the things that you have experienced. We call that somehow projection, if not transference. But here's the thing. In your process of saving the world, it is possible that you are still dealing with some of the wounds that you have experienced during those bullying years. I'm happy that you are slowly healing, and you were saying that the anxiety has subsided. But I think there will be time where you will be confronted again by this sense of stability. Can you share with us some of the fears that you do have right now as a young woman?
My fear is, I think it's a fear that many people could relate to. It's being judged by others. Because, for example, I grew up in a musical family, so we all love to sing. But because of my fear of being judged, oftentimes I cannot give my all when we are doing ministry in music or singing, especially when I am asked to sing solo or to deliver an instrumental special music. You will be able to hear it in my voice that I'm afraid, because my voice will just start shaking. Or when I play my violin, my hands will start shaking. So really, a fear that I'm really trying to overcome right now is just my fear of what people are thinking of me. Because growing up, I I'm the eldest in the family, so I have this responsibility to, as if I need to have everything together, because if I don't, then everything will just turn into chaos. But because of that fear, it's really hard for me to continue acting as if I have it all together.
Thank you very much. Chaos has been part of life, even as a baby. Okay, because sometimes mother is not always there. Sometimes you have to cry for quite some time before mom would show up. It's an imperfect world. But even as a child, we do have this sense of this resilience to overcome certain conflict and chaos in our life. But you have come to a point where you no longer trust the world, and you no longer trust even the chaos. And you have developed this sense of responsibility that if you don't step up, the world will stop revolving. That's such very heavy responsibility, but you just can't resist that. It's not enough for you just to stay seated, and do nothing. You have to do something to save the world. Thank you for sharing, with us such a vulnerable experience. Before I continue, let me just, I felt this need to relate my story with you as well, especially in singing, because I have the same kind of anxiety at one point in my life. I have a big voice, and some said, wow, basso profundo, that's a good voice. So I'm happy with my big voice. But you're not going to be happy if, as a child, usually as a child, it's hard for you to tell which one is a boy or a girl. As a child, you have this small voice. But if a child already have this big voice, that's kind of odd. And I have this big voice even as a child. And here's the thing, I'm passionate about singing. So one day, our choir, elementary choir, we were asked to sing. So we were practicing in our church. And I was passionate about the song that we're singing. In the middle of our practice, my teacher said, stop. So everybody stopped. And then my teacher pointed at me directly, you, come here. So I said, who? Yes, you. So I stepped down and then said, sit down. So she sat me down, and the boys at the back were giggling. They know what's happening. And some of the girls were giggling too, and it's kind of embarrassing. And to me, that's a form of bullying, at least in my experience as a child. And then they resumed the practice without me. The message is, you are destroying the wonderful harmony that we do have because you happen to have a big voice even as a child. I swear, in my heart, I told myself I would never sing again. So whenever I was asked from that on to sing, I was also nervous and just overthinking about things, just like what you were saying. You're not alone is what I'm saying. We have a little difference, though, in how you cope. I withdraw, but you step up, okay? Making sure that this experience is not going to happen again. But here's the thing. A piece of that experience, deep within you, you know it's going to happen again. You believe it. That's why you have to do something so that it won't happen again. Maybe it won't happen again, but you believe that it's going to happen again. So you are now being influenced by that small belief. And it's been part of your woundedness. My woundedness is, I know it's going to happen, but I'm not big on that. I already embrace, as a child, the fact that maybe my teacher is right. That I don't matter. That I might destroy some things that I touch. That I don't make a difference. I already embraced that, so I just buried myself, maybe in despair, believing that I am not going to make a difference. We have different coping, but we both were wounded. But the thing is, it's not the end of the world. And tonight, we'll be responding to this question. If you have this kind of wounds, and we've been talking about wounds, for several nights right now, maybe the audience were also asking, hey, is there a light at the end of the tunnel? You're always talking about wounds and the symptoms and the result of these experiences. We'll try to explore that. But do you have anything in mind, hoping that you could also find, or maybe already finding an answer as far as your wounds are concerned?
I guess it's there's this saying that I always remember that wounds take time to heal, and sometimes they won't heal. But it's up to us on how we react to those wounds that will make a difference in our lives. So I guess what I want to learn is how should I react to those wounds or to certain kinds of wounds so that they will heal. Maybe that's a question I would like to ask.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I agree with you. Time heals. But I'm going to add something to that. Time is going to be there. Time, the element of time, sometimes we misunderstand that the element of time, there is a natural progression and healing as far as time is concerned. But time is also offering you opportunity, especially if the wound is not biophysical, if the wound is emotional or psychological. Time is there to offer you an opportunity to go back to the innocent freedom that was wounded and hurt. In your case, your freedom to trust. Sometimes we just wait for time to, yes, time would give us an opportunity to heal. But the opportunity that time is giving you is, can I trust again? But trusting again is not something that's going to happen overnight. Trusting again is slowly believing that others and the world maybe is safe again. The world maybe is not going to always hurt me. And even if the world's going to hurt me, I don't have to generalize that the world in the bigger picture or the world in general is going to hurt me because it is not safe. Challenging that and slowly stepping out and building that trust back again, that's called, healing, the growth. And I could see the person like you who lost the confidence in what the world can offer can also discover a trust that can go beyond and transcend even the kind of freedom that you had as a child. The faith that could move mountains, as they say. But we have to take little steps at a time. It's not just about waiting, but also taking some risks. Does that make sense? How are you feeling right now?
Not as nervous as earlier.
Okay, great. Let's give a big amen to our guest tonight. Happy Midweek. I'm happy you're here. Thank you very much.
Sound check. Sound check. Sound check. Okay, so once again, good evening and happy midweek service to all. Happy midweek. Happy midweek. Nice. Thank you so much. It is my joy and privilege to welcome all of you tonight to the continuation of our Gospel Festival series. Tonight, promises to be a meaningful and thought-provoking session centered on the topic, the gospel according to our comfort. What do our wounds tell us? Well, that was said earlier by Pastor Geoff, and he will also be the God's chosen messenger this evening. What do our wounds tell us? While reflecting upon this question, I realized that this isn't just a question about theology, that this question is a question of humanity. We all carry wounds, right? Some visible, many hidden. And in the noise of everyday life, we often silence our wounds. We silence them, we cover them up with distractions, with success, accomplishments, or even well-meaning talk. But tonight, we pause and try to listen and to feel those wounds. Our topic challenges us to reflect. It's a space for honest wrestling, for holy discomfort, and for finding God not only in our strength, but especially in our own brokenness. The question, what do our wounds tell us, have something to deeper to say. Maybe about ourselves, maybe about grace, and for sure, about God Himself. And tonight, I would like to thank you for being here. Thank you for not just with your presence, but for your willingness and openness to heal those wounds. May this be a time of encounter, of reflection, and perhaps, maybe, a gentle transformation. One thing is for sure, we are not alone in this journey. And before I end, let me share to you this Bible verse, a promise given to us in Psalm 34, verse 18, which says that the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Once again, dear brothers and sisters in Christ, welcome and may you have a blessed evening ahead.
Sound test. Thank you very much. Such beautiful music, day in, day out. And I just want to let you know, my team, especially Addie and Vanessa, would like to express their gratitude for the benefits of being fed, not only with gracious and very palatable and delicious food from the courtesy of PIC and the cafeteria, but they are also happy, and I'd like to express that with you. They're also happy to share of the benefits and the blessings that they have experienced, and I have experienced the same thing. Because we don't usually get this in our own local areas in the US. To listen to beautiful music day in, day out. So you are blessed in this campus. And just want to let you know, just like what we had during the podcast, that music is something vital in the life of Happy, and I've shared a little bit about the story of music in my life. I don't know, I'm very thankful that God gave me a big voice, but to have a big voice in a small body, that's kind of odd. I don't know why. You know, the transition somehow was a little bit advanced. And just like what I was sharing a while ago in our podcast, I stopped singing. I was so fearful. And I never believed that I could sing again because of that painful experience. But guess what? Because of many friends, affirming friends, and maybe because of the need to have a bass in a particular choir, you know, they kept on inviting me, and I refused several times. But because of their encouragement, this is the gift of the community, brothers and sisters. The blessed experience of having a village, restoring the woundedness that I had growing up, their faith, the confidence in me, something that I don't have for myself. So I give them the credit. And eventually, they have invited me to be part of small groups, singing groups, even before I got here in college. And finally, when I got here during college, I was just amazed that, I don't know why, AUP ambassadors allowed me to be part of this singing group. So it's a long story of healing. What I'm saying here is healing is possible in our life. Tonight, is this working? Let me see if it works. We'll be talking about wounding of innocent freedom. Okay, let's give it a shot. Okay, wounding of innocent freedom. We talk about three things that remain in 1 Corinthians 13. Faith, hope, and love. Right? I'm not going to rehearse what we have discussed in the past, but very briefly, just want to remind you, these three remains, even though we are wounded and hurt and sometimes swallowed up by our own pain, that we no longer trust freely, that we no longer love unconditionally, and that we no longer hope, believing that we do matter. These three, even though we can't trace them at some point in our life, I just want to let you know, these three remains. They are still there. Maybe dormant to some people, but they do exist. They are there. It remains. This is God's DNA. No one can erase the fact that we are, the fact that we are created in His image. So, the gospel according to our wounds. This is the topic for tonight. What do my wounds tell me. I've shared some of my wounds with you. This morning, it's a long day for me actually. Tonight, I'm not supposed to be the person standing here before you. We have Linda, I think you can see that in the tarpaulin that we have outside. Linda Kiefer, and Linda Kiefer, if you're listening, we miss you. Linda Kiefer is supposed to be the person sharing with us a discussion about wounding of our innocent freedom. But unfortunately, Rick, I think Rick's face is also in the tarpaulin. Rick, Linda's husband, let's keep him in our prayer. He was diagnosed with cancer, and the treatment is more urgent than what they have expected, and therefore, they missed the opportunity to be with us today. We keep you in our prayers, Linda and Rick. Another form of injury and woundedness, right? And maybe there's a different kinds of wounds inside of Linda's heart right now, not being with us tonight. But let's go back to the wounds, my wounds, as I reflect down deep in my heart, what do my wounds tell me? And is there an understanding of the gospel from this particular angle? But first, let's try to understand different kinds of wounds. But before we do that, let me just read to you Psalm 147:3. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Psalm 147:3. There is hope. Although we've been talking about wounds after wounds after wounds and these several, first few nights, I don't want to keep you in the dark. Yes, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. But first, let us understand the kind of wounds we are dealing with, okay? So, I'm talking about relationship wounds. I'm not talking about biophysical wounds. And relationship wounds are also considered spiritual wounds. The way we carry our emotional wounds manifest in three distinct relationship dimensions. Do you know that you have relationship with self and you have relationship with others? Even before Sigmund Freud developed the psychodynamic theory of understanding your relationship with self, Jesus, many thousands years before Sigmund Freud, Jesus already established. In fact, even in Deuteronomy, it's already there. Okay? In the Old Testament. Yes, we know the first commandment is love thy neighbor, is love God with all your heart, with all your might, with all your soul, with all your strength. That's the first commandment. It's the vertical relationship, man and God. But the second greatest commandment is this. Love thy neighbor as what? As you love yourself. So in this equation, this is the relationship that we have to continue to nourish and to nurture and to flourish. Your relationship with self and others. And this is one of the eternal equations I think it would continue in this earth and in the earth to come. The basis and the foundation, the health of your relationship with others depends on your relationship with self. So, as far as relationship wounds are concerned, we are not just talking about your relationship with others. You have relationship with self, you have relationship with others, and relationship with the world, where others and self share the environment. Okay? So let's examine these relationship wounds. If your relationship with self is wounded, you might have these symptoms or experiences. One, do you doubt your inherent value? Do you struggle with self-acceptance? That is a wounded relationship with self. Two, do you believe that you are not enough? We covered that in our podcast tonight. I had those kind of experiences. Happy had those kind of experiences. Even Earl blessed with many gifts and talents, struggle with that kind of experience, as well as Rashay during our first encounter, first podcast. 3, do you tend to seek external validation to make sure you have enough information to feed the need of self as far as self-worth is concerned? If you do, maybe your relationship with self is telling you that's also wounded. And 4, do you tend to build strength to compensate for perceived inadequacy? And this is a great wound for me. You know, some people were saying, those who heard me in the past, you know, especially some of my friends, the only reference that they have hearing me speak was in college. So sometimes one of my friends sent me a text, actually sent my wife a text, said, "Oh, Jeff, improved a lot." Yes, and I thank God for that. But you know what? Those who knew me back, especially in college, I have this great struggle to preach, to stand before you. I'm a very introverted person. In fact, I don't understand why I chose ministry, because it requires preaching Sabbath after Sabbath. And my wife can attest to this. When I was assigned in one of my first few churches, we were newly married, I preach in and sometimes I spend hours and hours and hours to prepare for my preaching. And after I preach, no one would find me. You know why? I rush straight to the restroom, lock the door, pretending that I'm using the restroom, when I wasn't so sure if I did do well. I was not so sure if I was good enough in my delivery. That's how insecure I was. That's how wounded I was in terms of my relationship with self. So you're not alone. We are all in the same boat. Now let's talk about relationship with others. Do you doubt that others' ability to see you is not there? Do you doubt that, some people I know I can love myself, but I'm not quite sure if people could love me. I know I can deliver, but I'm not quite sure if people trust that I could deliver. I know I'm part of this, I belong, but I'm not quite sure if they would accept me. So your relationship with others is also tied up with relationship with self. And this is one of, the symptoms of having wounded relationship with others. 2, do you feel fundamentally different or separate from others? Do you feel like, okay, I don't belong to this group? I mean, it seems like it is a relationship with self kind of symptom. But if you can't trust a group enough to be open and to be accepting, and open enough to embrace you and assure you that you're part of that group, maybe your relationship with others is also wounded. 3, do you always question others' ability to deliver the way that you could deliver? You no longer trust the environment, you no longer trust others. There are many people who are having a hard time delegating their tasks. Leaders, even leaders, they tend to do things on their own. They don't know how to collaborate. They want to make sure that the world would continue to go on. But if they would trust others to do things as if they're already seeing in their mind, they will fail. And if they will fail, what's going to happen to the world? So I'm just going to do this by myself. Broken relationship with others. And 4, others are there to hurt me. I don't want to expose myself because I cannot trust you. I cannot trust you, and you, because based on my experience, I know what you're going to do to me. Relationship with others, symptoms of woundedness. And finally, this is a different kind of wound. relationship with self and others. And to make the picture bigger, maybe relationship with the world, okay? Have you come to a point where you start doubting the authenticity of your relationship with self and others? Authenticity is affected when your relationship with self and others is wounded. Authenticity is pure, it's stable, it's constant. But if your relationship with self and others are wounded, I'm going to give you an example, okay? A person who would like to hide behind a role, roles like success, or attention, or image, okay? If you are popular because of your role and enjoy hiding behind that, you don't have to work hard to be accepted as long as you can keep yourself hiding behind that particular role. If you're rejected, it's not also painful because they rejected the role, they didn't reject the person. And if you are being loved, it's also great because that's what your heart is looking for, but you don't know how to be authentic. If you remove that role and engage in a relationship, intimacy all of a sudden becomes odd. Why? Because you no longer know what authenticity means when you're used to hide behind roles and images. 2, do you feel disconnected from both self and others? Some of you could relate to this. You no longer know what to feel, and you no longer, sometimes you don't even know what to think, but you no longer know what to feel if you're connected with your own emotions, and sometimes you are wondering why you can't connect with others. Relationship with self and others could be wounded. 3, do you feel fundamentally alone even when you are already in relationship? Boyfriends and girlfriends, couples, if you are dating, and then for some reason there is no connection happening, for some reason you still feel alone, maybe your relationship with self and others is wounded. Do you question both your own reality, number 4, and others' perceptions? You always question, is this the right thing to do? You come to yourself and you can't trust yourself. You come to your friend and you can't trust for others. So sometimes you will only trust if the person has enough credential. And maybe you can be, okay, now I know what to do because this person has credential. And sometimes you relate yourself with the Bible with the same thing. The Bible is the source of everything. So unless it's in the Bible, I'm not going to trust it. It looks like a very Christian thing to do, but it could also be a symptom of your broken relationship with self and others. So, we talk about relationship with self and others. I'm going to throw something about the things that we've been discussing in 1 Corinthians 13. So imagine this. If you're struggling with your relationship with self and relationship with others, every single one of these 3 innocent freedoms that we've been discussing, the DNAs, love, hope, and faith, this will help us understand how wounded we are in terms of our relationship with self and others. Because there is also an area of love. So in the realm of love, let's say use the word realm, in the realm of love, am I wounded in my relationship with self or with others? What would that look like? A wounded love would look like this. You're having a hard time connecting and belonging. If you're having a hard time connecting and belonging, you might have certain wounds in the realm of love. Hope. What would a wounded hope look like? A wounded hope would look like this. If you keep asking yourself, will I count? Do I matter? Can I deliver? Will I make a difference? That is a sign of wounded hope. Or especially in the context of relationship with self. Or if you believe that you could deliver, you know that you matter, you know that you can make a difference, except that you don't trust that others see that in you. Maybe your relationship with others in the realm of hope is wounded. Now, faith would look like this: wounded freedom to trust. How would that look like? If you keep on building your identity based on a false standard of goodness. When I say false standard of goodness, as far as identity is concerned, I meant this: activities in church. Does it add identity to you if you are active in church? If you are a leader? If you are a savior of a certain organization? You know, when I say savior, the messianic complex that many pastors used to have. Do you feel that your identity is based on your virtue? Oh, this person is so kind. So you keep on working how to be even kinder. Okay? Because that's your identity. If you are no longer kind, who would you be? If you're no longer generous, who would you be? These are beautiful things. But if we keep on depending on virtues, on activities, on images, on positions, on roles, because we cannot trust the fact that we are God's children. That's our true identity. If we keep on building false identity, what happens when that identity is fallen? Do I depend on my self-worth based on what I can contribute to you? Many people are so generous. They're gifted with generosity. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you use that as a currency to get thank yous in return, to make you feel worthy, then something is wrong in that picture. So, I'm going to go back to this question. If our ability to love unconditionally, trust wholeheartedly, and hope in our worth has been wounded by life's hardships, how do we begin to move forward? What steps can we take to relearn love, rebuild trust, and restore hope? In other words, what should I do now? Fine, you just defined my woundedness. But where will I go from here? Brothers and sisters, let's just focus on trust and love and hope. To relearn love, trust, and hope, we must step into a relationship again. Despite the risk, no one learns to trust a life vest, unless they step into the ocean. Let me repeat this. To relearn love, trust, and hope, we must step into a relationship again, despite the risk. No one learns to trust a life vest unless they step into the ocean. This morning, I've shared the story of my wife trying to test the vest. Is it gonna work? And we were in the ocean. And whenever she sinks and the gravity pulls her down, she grabs my arm. No, I'm afraid. It's not gonna work. This vest is not gonna work. Brothers, I kept on reminding her, let the gravity pull you down so that the vest can pull you up. But unless you trust the vest, or unless you let yourself be pulled by the gravity, you will never, ever trust the vest again. Brothers, in John 5:1-8, Jesus encountered this man in Bethesda. In John 5. When Jesus asked, do you want to be healed? And this person says, unfortunately, I can't be healed because I don't trust people. No one helps me. They actually jump over me. The main malady, the main disease and illness that this person has is not just biophysical. It's something spiritual. I can no longer trust others. I can no longer trust myself. No one is here to care for me. So when Jesus started caring for him, it's an opportunity to trust again. To trust again. Should he enter this relationship? He did. So when Jesus asked him, this is a very different kind of healing as far as Jesus is concerned. Jesus didn't touch him. Jesus didn't actually put clay on his eyes or a limb because he couldn't walk. Jesus just commanded. Jesus said, rise, take up thy bed, and walk. He has to enter into relationship to believe, to try again. He failed several times. But this time, he entered and took the risk of getting up, physically challenging, a physical risk, but there's also a spiritual risk. Should I trust you? Should I follow you? Should I obey you? And he did. Brothers and sisters, the healing that we will experience is not gonna stop where we are stuck. We have to step on the water again. We have to listen to God's voice and enter into the relationship again. If you are afraid to take again into a relationship because you were hurt before, there is no other way to heal this but to risk entering into a relationship again. For those who are wondering if they could trust God again, there's no other way to find out until you trust again. God bless you all.
Our closing song, shall we all rise and sing our theme song, Growing in Jesus.
Let's pray. Dear loving Father in heaven, thank you very much for inviting us to trust you once more. Thank you for inviting us to take the risk of trusting and believing not only with the things that we could see, but even with the things that we couldn't see. And help us, O God, to continue to grow in Jesus, because we know Jesus is so invested in us, loved us, and cared for us. And we ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.